Good morning, students. Good morning once more. We are moving on to our discussion in this session, and we're going to look at the ethical versus unethical behavior. We're going to give that highlight very clearly in this discussion. Now, in this discussion, we are providing the differences between ethical and unethical behavior. Now, since we have talked about ethics at length, we have talked about ethics at length. I don't want to belabor ourselves on the concept of ethics, but I will introduce the code for the training this way. To look at the purpose of the training. What is the purpose of the training or the course, if you might like, lecture? The purpose of the training is to train attendees on ethical issues at the workplace. We should also train the attendees on questions of ethical behavior at the workplace. There are two learning outcomes here. We have two learning outcomes here. The first learning outcome, this training, is that we want to explain ethical behavior and ethical behavior in this discussion. So we shall give a concise explanation of ethical versus unethical behavior. We're going to give a discussion on these two concepts, even citing the examples of what ethical behavior is and what unethical behavior is like. Then we also want to discuss the factors that lead to unethical behavior, and we shall look at the types of ethical behavior in this discussion. Those are some of the learning outcomes that we expect to realize or achieve by the end of this discussion. So far, so good. The discussion. We move on to our discussion. So let's look at the ethical behavior. Now, that's another table. It's a table that I used in the previous lecture, but I just want to use the table again, I mean the pictures again. So take time and read through the picture, the writings in that presentation. Then after I've read the writings there, we shall endeavor to find out some of the ethical behavior in this presentation. So take some 2 minutes, read through, read, understand, then I will ask a number of questions on this. Now, I hope you have looked at the writings in that presentation. If you find that from this presentation, ethics is about being honest. Being honest, this is one type of ethics or ethical behavior. You need to be just to people, responsible, respect people, being good to people, demonstrate high level of morality, you are a professional, you demonstrate the concept of fairness, trust, etc. So these are some of the forms of ethical behavior that we are talking about and we talk about. This discussion will not dwell more on these aspects because we had mentioned them in the previous discussion. Now look at this picture again. There's another picture. You can read through for yourself. Try to figure out what are the meanings of those terms. Now you can see now from this drawing or from this presentation, same things are coming up. The question of integrity, respect, loyalty, reliability, and consistency. These are some of the forms of ethical behavior that a society need to have. among its members or its citizens. These are examples that we are talking about, and we move on to unethical behavior. This is where our discussion will revolve around, and we shall take a good time talking about these issues of unethical behavior. Because many times people talk about ethics, but they forget to talk about unethical behavior. What brings unethical behavior is lack of morality, lack of principles, lack of ethics, etc., lack of values in the society. So we are going to look at the ethical behavior in this presentation this morning. It will take us some time here. So we are saying that an ethical challenge is a situation where there is a recognition of an ethical or moral issue. You recognize ethical or a moral issue. Number two, personal actions regarding this issue have consequences for others. Three, a choice is presented that engages personal volition. So you have said there is a recognition of an ethical or moral issue. There are personal actions regarding this issue have consequences for others, and a choice is presented that engages personal volition. So these are things that happen in the society. There is an ethical or a moral issue within the society. Personal actions regarding this issue have consequences for others, and a choice is presented that engages personal volition. So an ethical challenge is a case whereby you are presented with a dilemma of two issues to pick between. And that's why we are talking of ethical challenge being a situation where there is a recognition of ethical or a moral issue. Say, for example, there is a question of now, like you're working at a workplace and you there is a plan of people stealing, and you are also supposed to be involved. But that's a challenge, an ethical challenge. Which a position or which part do you stand? That's a challenge. It's a dilemma, because if you steal, they say that you get rich. If you don't steal, you get poor. If you steal, you become rich, and if you don't steal, you become poor. What are you going to do in this case? What are you going to decide on? Are you going to steal to become rich? Are you going to not to take part in stealing, then you become poor? But I don't think that if you steal and you become rich, is that is okay. It is wrong. It is wrong because one, you might be made by the strong force of the law. You might be killed, you might be imprisoned, you might be stoned to death by the mob justice. Mob justice can stone someone to death. So think about those issues. Being stoned to death, and you have gone away with a number of dollars. Say, for example, $500. You go away with $500, then you are stoned. That's a challenge. You don't go away those dollars, don't steal those dollars, then you are not stoned to death. You live your life, though with the struggle, but at least you have saved yourself. You have saved yourself from a situation. So stealing is another area. So ethics violation can also involve stealing items, including office supplies and computer equipment. This might also involve accounting officers embezzling funds. So the question of stealing affects members in an institution, and we have seen cases of stealing in organizations. People steal property, people steal from the organization they serve, and that's an area that poses or becomes unethical behavior. Unethical behavior is the opposite of ethical behavior. So stealing is one example of unethical behavior that people engage in. So people engage in this aspect of immorality by stealing, and that becomes unethical behavior. Unethical behavior. Move on. So we have misconduct as another trouble, another question or another issue on unethical behavior. So misconduct. So misconduct in the workplace can take on many forms, and the common varieties include discriminatory practices such as age, religion, race, or gender bias. So people are discriminated, and that's a form of misconduct at the workplace. We also have what we call time theft. Time theft. And this is quite common. It's quite common in the workplace. People steal time. And how can someone steal his or her own the job or the workplace time? Think about it. Think about it and how, if you have ever done so, and find that. So there are reasons why people steal time. Sometimes time can be stolen intentionally or unintentionally. Unintentionally meaning that somebody had a burning issue to partake and stopped coming to a job or a workplace. But that's not actually the reason. That's not an issue. If you don't turn to the workplace on time, maybe you had a sick relative at home, you had somebody who was unwell, you could have called the employer to inform him that I have an issue I'm sorting out with my family members. Somebody in the family is not feeling well. Then you will be given permission to come late or to miss duty. But sometimes people steal time by not communicating. They keep off, they keep away from the job for some time. They don't actually turn out to the job place on time, and they don't communicate why they are late, why they have been late. So this includes arriving to work late and leaving early. So you arrive, say for example, at the workplace, you are supposed to arrive at 8 a.m. You arrive at 9, and the time for arrival is 8. You arrive at 9 a.m. Then you depart or you leave at 3 p.m. Yet you are supposed to leave the workplace at 4:30 p.m. So that's how time is stolen at the workplace. People steal time in that way. So time theft also includes being on work websites or spending time sending emails to friends Now, you are supposed to, say, for example, perform an activity, go to work, partake a given activity, but you go on and you are opening some websites, watching some videos when you are supposed to be working. You are sending emails to friends when you are supposed to be working. So that's also another question of unethical behavior within the organization. We have the question of bribery. Why do people bribe? Why is bribery so common in an organization or institutions? I want you to explore that concept of bribery and find out why is bribery so common in organizations, in institutions. Take time, think about it. On the question of bribery, why do people bribe? Is there a reason why people bribe? Have you ever bribed somebody? What are the challenges of bribing? What are the side effects of bribing? When you bribe, what happens to you? Hmm? When you bribe, what are the penalties of bribery? So I've raised those questions with a purpose. There's a reason why I'm raising those questions, because bribery is a vice that is affecting institutions, organizations, etc. People bribe, one, to get favors. People bribe to get jobs. People bribe to help relatives. So people bribe to help relatives in or family members get those opportunities at the workplace. So bribery is a form of cash inducements, gifts, and favors when representing clients. Or sometimes you can ask a client to give you some money, then you assist him acquire or attain something. That's bribery. So you ask some customers to give you some cash, some money, so that you give them some favors. That's a case of bribery that takes place in organizations, in the institutions. So then we have another form of unethical behavior, apart from time theft. And here we are talking of the consultants using their position for financial gain. So people that need to be consulted use positions for financial gain. They get some finances, yet they are supposed to be consulted maybe for free or at a certain level or figure of money. Then clients are awarding contracts to companies in which they hold interest. So like in organization, in countries, in some of our countries, we have those people awarding contracts to family members. You award contracts to organizations that you run or companies that you run. Then government role is to deliver services. However, they're now in competition with the private sector through their business units. So the government should deliver services, but there is that competition between the government and the private sector in terms of businesses, which is something wrong. Then maintaining impartiality Maintaining impartiality is another question, issue. Now, we move away from the types of unethical behavior, but in summary, as we move on to the discussion, I want to add more examples of unethical behavior as we move on. So we have talked of stealing. So stealing is a form of unethical behavior. Bribery, robbery, embezzlement of funds. These are not presented here, but are things that we come across in our society. We have embezzlement of funds. We have corruption. We have dishonesty. Cases of cheating in exams, etc. So these are some more examples of of unethical behaviors. But I want us to shift our discussion to another area, because there should be causes, there should be factors that prop or enhance or bring about these kinds of behavior. I want us to look at the factors or reasons why people take part in these kinds of behavior. So we have the first one. The first factor is pressure, which can drive people to do things they wouldn't normally do. So we have the question of pressure from the friends, pressure from relatives, pressure from people that surround you. They force you to do things that you didn't want to do. Then some people make unethical choices because they are not sure about what really is the right thing to do. So people are not able to make the right, so they do it unintentionally. They don't know what is the right thing to do in a organization. Sometimes you go to organizations of learning or institutions, for example, so people are ambitious. There's that downright greed at the bottom of everything. So personal gain, ambition, greed forces people to behave in unethical behavior. Then we have unethical activity in business. Unethical activity in business, whereby people hike prices of commodities in a business. People do not actually state the right prices of commodities.